Yes, did you know that Gaza, what's called Gaza, ancient place that's called Gaza, was given by Shlomo HaMelech, by Negus Solomon, by King Solomon of ancient Israel, ancient Israel, to the Queen of the South, right? Known as the Queen of Sheba, the Queen of the South, to Queen Makeda. Now, see, this is one reason why dismissing certain testimonies of ancient history is bad. Like they include some things with the state of Israel that has a lot to do with certain biblical interpretations as well as some misinterpretations, you know what I mean? This whole thing, that we're witnessing right now. But then I begin to think and say, wait, Gaza, and I want to thank Sister Estefania, because she had pointed out something right here. Let's just go over here to some basics on Gaza. So we have this right here, Gaza. Gaza meaning. What does Gaza mean? The word Gaza come from the Hebrew Azza. Come from the Hebrew Azza. Somebody say Azza, but really it's Azza. It's such a hard, it's an oin. The Hebrew ot, the letter, the sign is a oin. Oin. I wonder whether do they have it in the language here. So this is the area. This is the approximate area that's called today. I want to emphasize that. That's called today. It's interesting if we start to add some of this right here, even from the roots and the reggae, remind me of like the Gaza, these terms, right? Gully, right? But Gaza, speaking about the biblical area, Gaza, right? You see right there where they have, okay. So yeah, Gaza. All right, I'm gonna take this call and maybe bring our brother in on this right here. In fact, let me not even pause it. We're gonna go through. Come in and greet the people, my brother.
Yes, my lord.
Come and greet the people. Yes, I.
Yes, I greetings in the name of His Majesty Xavier, Karmal, Heilis, Selassie, Messiah,
Yeah,
Rastafari.
Rastafari. Yes, I. We just started a little build right here. Hold on for a moment. Let me get everything in position right here. Start a little build on something that I think I mentioned before. That Gaza was given to the Queen of Sheba. Let's just keep it like that. That's a straight title. Gaza was given to the Queen of Sheba, known as the Queen of the South. Therefore, the Ethiopian Queen, Ethiopia, Gaza, looking at a peace. It's about the peace. I think others have been trying to make the peace, and they don't know how to make peace. They're not peacemakers. You know what I mean? Because they say there's two sides of it, right? But there's actually a third side, and that's why I was reasoning on right here. We just got into the top of it. They didn't even really drop any exhibits just yet. Was thinking the eye probably was on call and come through and everything like that, and I'm so happy the eye did. Just on this reason, I hope the eye can, chop this up right here. Vibes on this right here, Gaza. We want to learn about Gaza. We have to educate ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah. So we was actually looking at Gaza Nation. Gaza Nation. We use this term Gaza like in Jamaica and some of like the.
So the whole Caribbean does use it, I mean,
come in.
No, the whole Caribbean does use the Gaza thing, because if you go to different islands, right, and somebody telling you they're taking you to the Gaza, just know you're going to like the roughest part of the island.
You hear that, people?
So regardless of where you go in the Caribbean, most places have a place that they consider the Gaza right now,
Wow.
So that has kind of taken root within within the minds of the people. I don't know why, but that has taken root.
Because what's his name? Mavado, and who's the other brother there? I just saw his picture there. Cartel, right?
Vibes Cartel.
Vibes. We just vibes in here. Vibes Cartel. Let that tune. Selassie, we love you. You know what I mean? But yeah. That whole Gaza and Gully thing. You know what I mean? That whole Gaza and Gully thing.
But the Gaza part is what really take off because ain't too much people really done with the gully, you know. And if you if you kind of really like check it in the vibration of itself, you know, you don't really want to be a gully youth, you know. I mean, that's like a low, you know, when you think about it, you know, the gully is a low, like a low place, you know.
Like a low vibration, like a gully, yeah. Like
you know, so the Gaza is more of a, you know, more of a shatter type, you know, the Gaza, that kind of like more of an uplifting vibe, you know, so.
It pop.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so if you're down the street and you're down the top, the Gaza is more of a place that you will more.
You can come up.
You will more tech to, you know.
You can come up. It's a place where there's the opportunity for a come up. Would you say that?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because it's overall, there's a lot of downpression still, but
oh yes,
sometimes, you know, for the same work you put in over there, you put in the work over here, the work go much further. You know, the same work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're working hard like in the Caribbean or some parts of Africa, and then if you could come, you could go through for a work mission in Europe or the Americas or Canada. You know what I mean? That same hard work that you be putting in over there can pay off so many times more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's a parallel too, no? Because if you look at what's been going on in the Gaza Strip for decades now, right? And then look to the places in the Caribbean that has adopted the Gaza thing and look at the environment where they call the Gaza. It's a place of oppression, you know, it's a place of sorrow and death and these things, you know, this is where, you know, like, you know, the rough things in life really happen in those areas, you know, in those environments. Is the environments where people scared to go to, you know. People tell you don't go in those areas, stay away from those areas, you know. And if somebody who ain't frequented those areas happen to go in that area and come out, they happy to brag that they was there.
They survive.
Yeah, you know, it's like a tourist attraction. You know, it's like, you know, I went to the zoo. You know,
I hate to say it, I was thinking about haunted house, almost.
Yeah, like, you know, like them kind of vibes.
But here's the thing, and no, I just gotta heal up to mind them, you know, from the Gaza at the same time. You know what I mean? Just since we're on the subject matter, because we can't escape this. When we talk about Rastafari, we talk about Ethiopia, we talk about Israel, you know, ethnic Israel. When I say ethnic Israel, I mean we Afro, black and brown people mainly, but it doesn't exclude that there's other family. You hear me say, right?
Yeah.
That there's other family, but mainly because people say, why would you say black? Because people want to black out the black. You know what I'm saying? And whitewash the black. You know what I mean? And they even talk about white.
But that's been going on for, you know,
for 400 plus
years now, you know.
For 400 plus
years. It's whiting out of history, you know. They got it wiped out, you know.
True, but also we got to recognize that it wasn't like an eternal thing. It wasn't like forever, ever, ever. You know what I'm saying? That this is something that this is like a mind uckery, a mind sin that really everybody has gotten infected. Like when we talk about born in the world, like born in the world of sin. You know, it's like we're born into this sinful environment, this thought.
Yeah. You ain't born sinful, you're born into a sinful world.
We're born with free will, you know what I mean? But then over time, sometimes people sell out their free will. You know what I mean? You were free before, but now, you know what I'm saying? You know, like you can lose your freedom. You know what I'm saying? In certain ways. You can regain it too.
You see that thing with free will, right? That free will was for you to choose the good, you know, and stay with the good. Because the bad was to show you how good the good is.
How good the good is.
Yeah, because if you only know good and you don't know bad, right? It's like, okay, in the beginning, the Adam and Eve story. When they didn't know good from evil, they were just good. But once they learn the good from evil and they transgress from what they wasn't supposed to do, and now they see they lose what they had. What they have now is good enough. But compared to what they had,
Yeah, that was better. That was Tov Ma'od. That was very good.
It was so much more better.
It was very good.
Like comparing what you had to what you have.
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
have is trash.
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
by
compared to
comparison.
what you had.
Yeah, that was very good. That
Ah,
was enough good. Not like I said, Tov Ma'od, enough good from the Hebrew. I like to bring out the real spirit of the Hebrew. Enough good. You know what I mean? It was enough good. It was much good. Much good.
it's like it's like back in the day, like man don't deal with the debtors no more. You check, but man used to deal with debtors at one point. You check, and saltfish and saltfish and thing was my thing. I make you a thing of saltfish with some sweet peppers and some chickpeas and thing cut up in it and thing. You gonna like that. But if I just saw ackee now in there.
You're gonna love that. That's
very
very
good. That's a whole different part now. The next time I come, if I don't have the ackee with the saltfish, you're gonna be like, where the ackee there?
Yeah, yeah. You're trying to deny me the very good. You're trying to deny me the very good. Just give me just good. I want that very good. But check this. But check this out before we even get on that for a moment, because this one about the Queen of Sheba. I thought about this even years ago. I mentioned a few ones maybe on the podcast when we pass by these topics, whatever. I might say a little thing that the Queen of Sheba was given Gaza. One of her wedding gifts was Gaza. Now, wherever this Gaza was, right now we're going to look at Gaza today. We're going to deal with the reality today. You know what I mean? And then we can explore, ancient geographies. You know what I mean? But just looking at what's called Gaza today, right? If that's Gaza today, and that's the Gaza that the KEBRA NAGAST, the Queen of Sheba, only son Menelik, speaks it. People try to say that this is not real. The Israelites of Ethiopia testimony is not real. Everybody else is. Even these ones who call themselves Jews, whose testimony, everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people buy into one way or the other. But let's look at the other half of the story. That's why I wanted to bring this up about Gaza being given to the Queen of Sheba. Now,
just before you go there, let me say this here. It's funny how you don't find people of the time that they say is not real disputing these things. You have people hundreds of years later who was never around,
thousands of years,
telling you something didn't happen.
Thousands of years.
Thousands of years. So y'all remember that the people who telling you these things didn't happen, they thousands of years removed. That's like somebody sitting in California telling me something in China didn't happen today.
Yeah,
you don't know what happened in China unless somebody over there tell you.
Yeah, because you don't want to accept it as true.
So right now, what's going on in the Gaza Strip right now? In the Gaza Strip, they're not letting in any outside reporters in the Gaza Strip right now. But you're getting reports about the Gaza Strip. You gonna believe any other foolishness? So go ahead.
No. All things Gaza. We're focusing, like we did in the other video, about crying for the Afro-Palestinians and Afro-Israelites.
I've seen that. I didn't get a chance to check it out yet, but I've seen that.
Give thanks. I want to get the eye feed forward on that right there, because we touched on some of it, but then we just kind of went in on that, because even the next one, heal up to Zion Lex, Abdiel Ben Levi, for his, I heard him speaking about the Afro-Palestinians and just getting a broader view. Like, a lot of black people are into this issue, usually, against the state of Israel, or, generally speaking, maybe on the side of the Palestinians, seeing some of the basics, because we experience, like you said, everywhere in the Caribbean where they got a Gaza, so people automatically see what's going over there, and they begin to identify with what we can say is a human condition, of it. Now, we're not dismissing that, but we want to scroll to another perspective. And this is the perspective that the way they're trying it right now is going to bring on prophecy, end times, this great war, all the stuff that's talking about is likely they're going to bring it about by the works of their own hands and the illnesses of their own hearts. But perhaps if we look at it from the true point of view, imagine if Ethiopia, right, claims were accepted, by the racist world system. Oh, that's what I'm saying right here. If the Ethiopian claims were accepted, Even if the other groups like the Ashkenazi European Jews or whatever, even if they were making their claims religiously or otherwise, right? But their claims have been accepted by the world, by the UN almost exclusively. Almost exclusively. The only one we had at that time was the Lion of the tribe of Judah, Haile Selassie I, and Ethiopia abstained, did not vote yea, did not vote nay, but still had, right, relationships with those of that particular state, right, which served to a degree Ethiopia's interests. You know what I'm saying? While at the same time maintaining relations with its ancient relations with the Arab-speaking world. When I say the Arab-speaking world, it's both the black Arabs and the white Arabs. I got to say it like that because that's the reality of the times that we live in. You know what I mean? We can't expect to conquer something and then we pretend that like it doesn't exist. You know, and it's beating us side of the head. Somebody beating you that side of the head, and it's like, Seymour, why don't you fight back? It's that don't even exist, and they say you're getting hit. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to take that thing that exists and move it out of existence. And this is by looking at the other side of the story. And so therefore I'm thinking about this, say, wait, when we talk about, like, some mention like Ethiopia has ancient claims in that region. We know the church history of Ethiopia, and also the Judaic, the Judeo-Christian, or the Menelik, Solomon, Queen of Sheba, we could say black Jews, Lion of the tribe of Judah, that whole historical connection, which in a lot of popular circles of different levels of academics is not completely dismissed, right? But it's treated almost like a stepchild. But yet, if we look at it in reality and say, well, suppose we looked at this interpretation and we apply this to the geopolitical world scene instead of what they're applying to the geopolitical world scene. You know what I'm saying? Because one thing, like even in the Psalm 132 that we played tonight, the Royal Order Ethiopian Hebrew Psalm 132, in part of the Midrash, I was listening to it, and it said that there were some things that was given conditionally. I don't know if you picked up on that part. Some things was given conditionally. You know how people talk about unconditional. We touched on that before, and that's kind of an ongoing theme because that is the propaganda. That's the false program. That's a false mindset that people still think that these things are like, there's such a thing as unconditional. I'm not saying there is no unconditional, but the unconditional is not what they want you to believe. What they make believe was unconditional. Right here it says right here about 3 things was given. Yeah, 3 things were given conditionally by Adonai, by the Lord, by Yah, right? The land of Israel, the temple, and the throne of the house of David. The book of Torah and the covenant with Aaron, however, were given unconditionally. Right? Once again, 3 things were given conditionally by Yah, by Yahweh, by Jehovah. Right? What the 3 things were? The land of Israel. Conditionally. That means if they don't meet the conditions, then Yah says in his word, right, that much of the world has access to, right, that they can be removed from the land. Right? The temple, right, was given conditionally. That means if they didn't do certain things, they wouldn't have no temple. Right? Now, these things happened to our ancestors, those of us who make the claim of the Hebrew and the Israelite connection, Royal Order of the Ethiopian Hebrew connections, that we were removed from our own land into other lands. Right? We lost the temple. That happened in 70 AD, about 40 years after the crucifixion of Yeshua. The Messiah, right? And then it says the throne of the house of David. Throughout the scripture, throughout the Psalms, we know that there was a covenant made with the house of David, and the Lord said that he would keep this covenant, but it would only be to the generation, like it will only be to the generation who were in good standing in the covenant. You know what I mean? That means that if you had somebody who was descended from David, but they wasn't of good, like, moral character, you see what I'm saying? He would not be with that one. Jah would not be with them. You know what I mean? And there would be a setback, but then it would continue with another seed of the house of David, right? Who was covenant keeping. Now, the things that were given unconditionally was the Torah. The Torah, his instructions was given without condition. You know? And think about it today. Everyone can point to the Bible in one way or the other. Think about it for a moment. At one time, it was mainly among Israel. You see what I'm saying? When they were in the covenant, they were doing what they were supposed to do. This was theirs, their way to live and their way to prosper and fulfill the will of the Almighty in their lives. You know what I mean? Now it's kind of become like all nations. You know what I mean? All people can read the Torah, at least the translation and the Bible in general, right? And it says the covenant with Aaron. Now, Aaron represents the high priest, the Messiah. Aaron represents the whole priest aspect. You know what I mean? This was given unconditionally, right? So this covenant, right, with Aaron, that's why it could be, when he said to Israel, he said that he wanted Israel to be a nation of the priesthood, a holy nation. So originally the whole nation was supposed to be like Israel, was supposed to be like the world's priest. If Israel had followed through, it would be like almost how we see the new name in Rastafari, in the fullness of the way, truth, and life, being that kind of priest, you know, for all nations and being a holy and set apart nation. You know what I mean? But because of what happened with the molten calf and everything like that, it was shown that the whole people were not ready. They were not ready for this high calling. But the Levites, they were more ready, you know what I mean, to do what it is, you know, even if they had to go against their own family. You know what I mean? In order to fulfill it, it showed that they were faithful, you know, to their creator over the creature. So I pointed that out because when I looked at the land of Israel was given conditionally, it's kind of interesting because you have this unconditional allegiance, right, to a political state. You see what I'm saying? But yet the political state being established based on biblical, right, based on biblical reference. You know what I'm saying? It's not like picking and choosing the parts of the Bible that you want to choose. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but look at the major impact of this now in geopolitical world affairs and the lives of millions of people, billions of people, you know what I mean, on the face of this earth, you know, who are affected in one way. This is like a multi-level attack. This is a spiritual warfare, but it's also a temporal warfare. There's a warfare going on among flesh and blood, but there's also a higher level of spiritual and psychological warfare that's going on. And it's all because, in my opinion, that they rejected the testimony, you know what I mean, of the Ethiopians. They rejected the testimony of the King of Kings. They rejected the testimony of the KEBRA NAGAST. And the KEBRA NAGAST says that that land was given, right, to the Queen of Sheba, right, as a wedding gift. Now, we can go through the history and say, well, if that's the land, you know, what happened over the years? Because sometimes something is given, you know, sometimes somebody could be given something, but nobody really recognizes the value until later on. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Every time you come over, you make that, you know, sawfish, and then you add the aki. And then one day the aki is not there. You know what I mean? So this is the situation that we're facing even today, right? I'm not saying present Ethiopia can't even fully make that claim, because a lot of present Ethiopia, right, is being made to believe like the world believes. At one time they believed it as fact, and now they're beginning to dismiss it. You know what I mean? Like those who are making the claim for the state of Israel, you know, they're also backing it up with biblical reference. Now, whether the biblical reference is right and accurate or not is a whole different point. So we see where in modern politics, right, in modern politics, it's not just historical things, political and business things, but it's also, we could say, biblical and religious things. So why are their claims greater than our claims? I was at the point of the video when I had called and came in. I was at the point of the video where if you look up Gaza and meaning of Gaza, right? If you look that up, you'll find something very interesting. It says
violence.
Huh?
Violence.
No. Look it up, bro. Gaza here means strong city, right? Gaza means strong city, and Gaza comes from the Hebrew word Azza. Azza.
A strong city.
Yeah, Azza. But notice, in Hebrew, it doesn't begin with a G. It begins with a hard A, what we call the Ain. It's like there's like ah and there's ah. There's ah and there's ah ah. It's like the back of the throat. It's like a hard. So instead of saying Gaza, we'll say Alza, Alza. But it's such a hard sound that people who are not Shemitic speakers would sometimes hear it as a G. So it's like Azza, but it could sound like Gaza, Gaza, Azza, Azza, right? And it means strong. Like the Azza is to be strong, Azza, right? So what's so interesting is that, first of all, it's not even a G, and it's a Hebrew word, right? It's a Hebrew word, right? And you first find it in the script. You first find it in the script right here. We're at Genesis 10 and 19. And there appears to be about 19 verses. There appears to be about 19 verses in the scripture, right? Not going to go through all of them now, but I'm pointing it out for ones and ones to check it out, like in the future. You know, there's 19 verses for Gaza. Because people talk about Israel is in the Bible. Well, yes, of course, you know what I mean? But Gaza is in the Bible too. And it says, and the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar, to Gaza, as thou goest to Sodom and Gomorrah, and Admah and Zeboim, even to Lasha. Now, this scene right here, right, is talking about like in Genesis. In fact, we're in this Noah Torah portion here, Genesis chapter 10, right? It's talking about the dispersion, right? The dispersion of the Canaanites and their descendants. And then it talk about the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar, and to Gaza, their border. So even here in the scripture, it's kind of giving us an idea similar to the modern view they're trying to make us believe, that actually Gaza is a separate territory. But what we already know is that they've annexed other territories in war, you know what I mean, and taking it over. You know what I mean? Like you have a fight with somebody else and you're fighting on the streets, you're fighting back and forth in each other's house, then you finally get to go into his house, all up into his living room, deep in his house, and then when the fight is over, you keep some of your niggas, you keep some of your people in his house. You know, so when he's going about his regular thing, he got to see these people in his house.
Yes.
Because their troops looking out to see if you're going to get in this war again. You know, because maybe you surprised him before. Now he's like, you're not going to surprise me now, so I'm going to be like up in your bedroom. You know that's going to be problems. That kind of gives people a little view of, even after the conflicts that have been, you know, the state of Israel, you know what I mean? The European Jewish state of Israel, along with the backing of England and Europe and America, has taken great liberties. But the Bible here is telling you that Gaza, right, Gaza, actually is the border of the land of the Canaanites. So this was a city of the Philistines, right, located in the extreme south of Palestine. And it was said to be close to the Mediterranean. If you look at a map today, Gaza appears to be like it has a whole coast, right, on the sea. You know, a whole coast on the sea. You know, and it's said to be a strong city because in Hebrew, Oz, you know, when they say Oz or Oz, even Oz, when they say Oz, Oz in Hebrew means strength. Uz means strength. When we say Uzi, Uzi, Uzi. So Uzi and Oz is at the root. It means like to be strong, to be mighty, but also to be fierce, to be very fierce, to be harsh. You know what I mean? And sometimes in the scripture, this word is brought out like as to be fierce, or one could be greedy, one could be mighty, one could be powerful, one could be like rough, but a sense of one being like strong, like to become strong, to prevail, to strengthen, and to be stout, like to be big man. You turn big man in Gaza. You know what I'm saying? You become strong, literally or figuratively. Now, here's what I want to get to right here, just to show people in the KEBRA Nagast. I don't know if you have a copy of the KEBRA Nagast, but I have this digital copy right here, and just go through a few of the areas. I know, yeah, it can't be many areas right here. You know, it can't be many areas right here. I don't know how many times I'm going through this, people, with you right here, to show that Gaza is mentioned in the KEBRA Nagast. You know what I mean? And there's so much other so-called history, even from Roman history, that people accept as history. and they have very lately written documents, or at least copies come from very late time. Like Roman history doesn't even have half, and Greek history don't even have half of the documents that the Bible has. It doesn't have half the documents that the Ethiopians even have. You see what I'm saying? But they never doubt. You know what I mean? They never doubt Roman history because they are Greco-Roman in their roots and culture. You know what I'm saying? But then they want to make us doubt our story, or the story of our related peoples, right? Ethiopian Hebrews and Israelites of Ethiopia. So here I'm in the Wallace Budge version, and I'm just going to go through the preface, just a couple of the places where it has Gaza. It says, when Solomon himself arrived at Gaza, he found that the report which the scouts had made to him was true. His heart sank. This is like when he was trying to chase down, the Ark of the Covenant, and his son and the children of the nobles, right? Well, let's go to the next place here right? Okay, so here we're in chapter, I don't know if the chapters are the same, but this is in chapter 33, right? Chapter 33. Hold on for a moment. Let me take this off right here. Yeah, chapter. Hold on for a moment. What's going on here? Okay, let me go into this again. No, my thing started to act up right here. Okay, it's the chapter How the King of Ethiopia Traveled. It's a chapter called How the King of Ethiopia Traveled. And it has a mention of Gaza, right? It says, in a couple paragraphs into it, says, and the young man and his retinue made straight their way, and they journeyed on and came into the country of the neighborhood of Gaza. Chant. We look at Gaza today, and it kind of at least reminds us of what we're reading, whether this was the Gaza then, but let's read on. Now, this is the Gaza, and now it says, this is the Gaza which Solomon the king gave to the queen of Ethiopia. So not even the Queen of Sheba, just in that sense. That's who she was. Ethiopia, south of the northern state, the Levant and everything. So here it says that the Queen of Sheba was given this by King Solomon. It's in chapter 33, or the chapter that's called How the King of Ethiopia Traveled. Is that what I said? Yeah.
And which part inside? Was in the fourth chapter? The fourth part?
Okay. Actually, it's, if I count the paragraphs may not be the same. That's a chapter that begins where the queen called Tamrin, where she called Tamrin the chief of her.
Okay, and the queen called Tamrin the chief of her caravan.
Okay.
Men and merchants.
Okay. Now skip forward. Can you see a line where it says, now there was a law in the country of Ethiopia that only a woman should reign, and that she must be a virgin who never known man. But the queen said to Solomon, henceforward a man who is of thy seed shall reign, and a woman shall never more reign. Now, to put this in the context, like a woman, like they had a practice of solitary queens. A woman can rule along with man, like the man and woman in that sense. Only seed, but she says, only seed of thine shall reign, and his seed after him from generation to generation. This is what the Queen of Sheba said, right? It's like the next paragraph or so. I don't know how the paragraphs are broken down.
Yeah, same thing. I think I got the same book you got to know. You sent me this one here.
Okay. So it'll be on page 39 then.
Yes.
Okay, and this thou shalt, okay, let's go along. Thank you. Give thanks. This thou shalt inscribe in the letters of the rolls of the book of their prophets in brass, and thou shalt lay it in the house of God, which shall be built as a memorial and as a prophecy for what? For the last days. The last days. Right? So now the Queen of Sheba basically is giving her declaration. This is after the Queen of Sheba, you could say she did teshuvah. She had a change of mind. She thought different. And basically her old ways, she recognized are nothing compared. That was good. As it said, that was good, but this is better. Right? And so she's setting certain things. Scroll down. It's actually near the bottom of the page. It's the last paragraph from the bottom of the page, where it says, and then the queen sent him away in peace. Right? The queen took the young man aside, and when he was alone with her, she gave him the symbol of Solomon. You see that at the bottom? It's at the bottom of the page 40.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, it says right here. It says, "This is what the Queen of Sheba told her son. She gave him the symbol which Solomon had given her." So there's some symbol, right? That is to say, the ring on his finger, so that he might know his son and might remember her word and her covenant, which she had made with him, her Kidan, that she would worship Exhiabia, the sustainer, right? Elohim, all the days of her life, she and those who were under her dominion, with all the power that Elohim had given her. And then the queen sent him away in peace. So here's the paragraph. It says, "And the young man and his retinue made straight their way, and they journeyed on and came into the country of the neighborhood of Gaza." Right? It's interesting how it's spoken here, because it was a country, but it was like one big neighborhood.
Go back a second there.
Go ahead.
And his retinue. What is that?
Oh, retinue is like his boys. Servants.
Right.
The people who are like, you walk in and you got your
You got your clique.
yeah, your clique. But you may have people. You may have like you could have your cook with you. You could have your cook and your chef. Like your whole household, so that wherever you at, you comfortable. But his clique, his retinue, whoever was amongst him, made straight their way, and they journeyed, and they came into the country of the neighborhood of Gaza. So now, coming from Ethiopia, right? Coming from the south, the lands of the south, and the Horn of Africa, where the ancient Aden or Aden is, right? And journeying northward, right? The first place they reached was the neighborhood of Gaza, the Gaza. Now, this is the Gaza. Now, here's the key part. This is the Gaza which the king, which Solomon the king, right? Negus Solomon, right? Gave to the queen, right? Nagista Ethiopia, the queen of Ethiopia. And in the Acts of the Apostles, Luke the evangelist wrote, saying, look at this. Now it's connecting here. It's connecting Acts of the Apostles, chapter 8, verse 27. Right? Luke the evangelist wrote, saying, he was the governor of the whole country of Gaza. So now here we have a slight different reading, but remember, we're reading a translation here. And here the translator brings out, he was the governor of the whole country of Gaza and eunuch of Queen Hentake, who had believed on the word of Luke the apostle. Now, here's a little footnote here. So I'm just pointing this out right here because this one little paragraph, it tells us a lot. It tells us that not only do Afro-Ethiopian people have a right to be there, you know what I mean? And therefore not just to be there, but also that means our voices in what's going on is important. You see what I'm saying? If this is of our legacy, in other words, the queen of Ethiopia, the queen of the south, she gave her word and made a covenant. That means every faithful generation that also keeps that word and that covenant is party to that word and that covenant. You see what I'm saying? So this is what I wanted to point out right here, because often it is kind of like, often it is dismissed. You know what I mean? Often it's dismissed because as we go further, right? As we go further, go down to chapter 34. You see 34 where it talk about how the young man arrived? It's speaking of Menelik or Bina Lechem or Dawid. His name would be Dawid, like he's like Dawid II. David had a son named Solomon, and Solomon had a son named David with the queen of the south. So chapter 34 says how the young man arrived in his mother's country. I'm pointing this out because it has a Gaza reference in it. And when
I got something here I pull up here on the net, and it's referencing the same thing we're reading right here.
Wow, really?
And it's It says the John Reynolds Library, and in there it's speaking about the same chapter 33. The conflation goes so far as to assert Gaza is the city which King Solomon had given to the Queen of Ethiopia. For in the Acts of the Apostles, Luke the evangelist wrote, saying, he is the governor of the whole country of Gaza, a eunuch of Queen Candace.
Okay. So that's on some site. I don't know if you could take a screenshot or send the link.
Yeah, I could probably send you the link. I'm gonna see that.
Definitely.
Well, like, it has more information. Is a lot more information on there. It just so happened that I was on the because while you was doing your thing, I've been on the site ever since. Like about 5 minutes after I came on, I realized what you was going to. I pull up some stuff and was looking, and I found this site, and I've been going through it ever since we were speaking. It just so happened that when you went where you went here in this book, I happened to end up at the same place on the tablet and see the same thing while you was reading that. I was seeing it on the tablet, and I was like, that's a trip that we got here in the book, and you reading this, and that's the place I am on the tablet, just listening to you scrolling through and trying to find, certain things in here that we could speak about, and it just happened that I'm on the tablet on the same exact subject that we're speaking about right now, so I just found that kind of interesting.
You see what I'm saying?
It's in the John Reynolds Library.
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely want to check that out because different scholars and different ones give their views of it. But what I'm saying is that they always try to marginalize the testimony, right, of the Ethiopian Hebrews, of the Beta Israel, of the Lion of the tribe of Judah. But as you read through many of their scholars, you'll know it must be something very important because quietly they spent a lot of time researching this. You know what I'm saying? Quietly, they spend a lot of time on texts and documents that they want to tell you is either pseudepigrapha or whatnot like that. They spend a whole lot of time researching it and writing reports and papers on it. And it's interesting to read some of the different, studies, the academics, some who might say, oh, it's all made up. Others who basically are trying to hint you, but then they have to be careful of their grant. Because, a lot of times they get grants to do these researches. You know what I mean? And sometimes the people who pay them the money to do the research, they want to get a certain result. But occasionally you'll get some scholars that have the discipline, the knowledge, and the scholarship that will come right out and let you know, like, yo, there's a lot of truth to this, and it's a shame that this racist world system, right, shows their racism even in important areas of scholarship, and will put on the world a lie, an outright lie. They'll claim that the people who are not are, and the people who are not. You know what I'm saying? And that will basically lead to what all Satanism leads to: war and bloodshed and anger and greed and murder. And you see what I'm saying? Because they're not taking into account that there's another player. You see, in a true situation, His Majesty, right, was very vocal about that whole situation over there. And for sometimes the European Jews, they listened to his advice. Ultimately, in the end, when they thought they did it all on their own, that's what led to the 1967, the Golden Heights, and that's what has been leading to all this strife all these years, because they occupied other people's land. See, we think it's just because people are fighting. It's one thing to fight, you know what I mean? But imagine we fighting and fight in my house, then it goes out in the street, then it goes to your house, and then the fight's over. Now I'm staying up in your house. You know what I'm saying? And then other neighbors are backing that up. Others are coming from far, like America and England, and giving me all the support. So basically, I got you outmatched. You know what I mean? You have to endure this Gaza. So here is a very important I'm looking at this politically. I'm gonna be straight up. I'm looking at this politically.
I
You know what
just
I mean?
emailed you the link too, so.
Okay, give thanks. Give thanks, my brother. You know, but there's also a prophecy in what's going on right now. You know what I mean? Because they're trying to use certain Ethiopians and certain other ones amongst our own people, right, to speak like a narrative on behalf of the Euro racist state. You see what I'm saying? That really has nothing to do with us. I think this is a very interesting time, you know, seeing that, you know, there are many of us who see that that region of the world is key to even what happens elsewhere in Africa and what happens elsewhere around the world. You know what I'm saying? Because of that very reason that Gaza, you know, Gaza, well, I want to say where's Ethiopia? Ethiopia will have to kind of have a repentance like the Queen of Sheba did. But look at chapter 34 for a moment, if you're there.
Yeah, I'm there.
So here, just to get quickly here, this is how the young man, how Menelik, the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon's only son, how he arrived in his mother's country. He rejoiced in the honors which he received, in the gifts that were made to him. And when the people saw him, they thought him to be the perfect likeness of Solomon the king. And they made obeisance to him. And they said to him, Hail, the royal father liveth. Note this right here. So there was a neighborhood in the time of Solomon, of King Solomon, that was called Gaza. And this neighborhood in this country was given, right, was given to the queen of the south, to the queen of Ethiopia. So this shows when Ethiopia and even other black peoples coming out of what they call Africa, right, are talking about so-called the Levant or Arabia. In ancient times, we didn't see that as a separate territory. For example, the Mississippi, right? The Mississippi goes through America, right?
Yeah.
And it cuts it off. There's a big river, right? Does that mean the other side of that river is not America? You know what I'm saying? The other
Yeah.
side of that river, you know, in Ethiopia, they have the Gihon River, and then Sudan. It splits the country. There's one side of the river and the other side, but it's still the same country. It's just like the so-called Suez Canal, what's now a Suez Canal, because
You have
before,
to remember we're using the ley lines of the down pressure, you know. So we have to remember that when we're looking at these ley lines, these
wait, you talking about
not the
crayon?
lane,
You talking about
you know, but these borders that they have put up and telling you that this is this and this is that.
oh, you talking about that crayon? That crayon on the piece of, on the map?
Yeah, we have to understand that they know that this thing that they got we coloring in and calling this country and calling that country. Back when these things here was going on, these lines was not there.
Exactly.
There wasn't this border line telling you that this is this place and that is that place. How they have it here today, so we farming arguments.
Yeah, and
on
modern Gentile and on a Gentile mind.
You're trying to farm an ancient argument on a modern map. That's why they tell you don't put new wine in a whole vessel.
Yeah. The first thing is that these artificial borders have to be challenged. These artificial borders is what has caused a lot of warfare, even on the continent of Africa and elsewhere in the world. Anybody who really understands what we're talking about, what the brother's saying, they have our children and have us coloring in different countries in this artificial way. And when you look at even the topography of the ground, you say, how are they going to have a straight line like that and a straight line like this? And, so when he came to his country, they thought he was his father. And they brought him gifts, right, and offerings, fatted cattle and food as to their king, right? And the people of the whole country of Gaza, you see that right there? The people of the whole country of Gaza, as far as the border of Judah. Think about it right now, what they call that land. They say it's Israel, but in the south is Judah, is Yehuda.
But the place was called not Judah, but it was called again
Judea.
Judea. Thank you.
You're right. Yeah. Judea by the Romans. It's called Judea.
Yeah.
And it was actually the Romans who changed it up and flipped it up to Palestine later on. It was actually the Romans. So, but notice, you know, some of the European Jews we've been studying certain things on them, and they even said that some say that it was a mistake that they called the land Israel. They should have called it Judea or Judah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? They should have called that, but you know why that was difficult? Because at that time, the whole world recognized the Lion of the tribe of Judah. You see what I'm saying? The Lion of the tribe of Judah was in the room at that time.
Days, before it was the Palestine, it was like it wasn't like Philistine or something like that, like Philistine.
Well, before the Philistines were some like migrants and immigrants in a sense, sea people. Some people liken them to the sea people. And in the time of David, the Philistines were like in the time of David.
David, yeah.
But then,
because so many people went through that land from the days of the Canaanites, because
but we beat the Philistines back then, and since they were a migratory people, in a sense, some of them moved on and some of them settled down. So some of them did become part of the people, but many of them moved on. They were beaten in the time of David. That's why you see right here in the KEBRA NAGAST, it says as far as the border of Judah. Because remember it says that there was peace. You know, he passed on to his son Solomon peace. So therefore Solomon came into time of peace because his father, you know what I mean? You could say, So
let me see if I'm right here. That whole area at one point, that was the land of Canaan, right?
Yeah, that was said.
That's what the Canaanites were, where the father said he was going to with Moses, he was going to send the people to Canaan, right?
Yeah. There was the land of Canaan. Yeah, it was the land of Canaan. Now the backstory on that, some people reject it, but many of us do accept it. The backstory on that was that Canaan had settled in land that he was not to settle in. When we go to the book
exactly, because when the sons of Noah split, there was given directive of certain lands, and they was not supposed to infringe on each other's lands. And the Canaanites
did so.
They're ones that disobeyed that law and infringed on the land.
They infringed on the land. So even when you see in the biblical times of Moshe, it called the land of the Canaanites, or it says, you'll see in another area, it says, and the Canaanites were then in the land. It said the Canaanites were then in the land. It's almost as to say that there was a time when they were not in the land. It's almost like, okay, let's make it real world. The white Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, Pilgrim, Christians, whatever they call themselves, they came over to somebody else's land, didn't they? And they found in America, right?
Yes.
The British and the Dutch, they went down to South Africa, fought the native people, and took that down there and set up their apartheid system, right? Right? In South Africa, in someone else's land. Right?
Don't forget Australia.
But no, I was making my way around the earth plane. I was coming from west to east. You know, I just want to drop down there way south. And then you have Australia too. These are some big areas. There's other areas too. You know, like even the state of Israel. Even we're talking about the state of Israel, what occurred in 1948. You know, it was a travesty because they did that on racist preoccupations. You know what I mean? And they flouted even in the face of the King of Kings. That's why Imperial Ethiopia abstained from that vote. You know, abstained from that vote. You know, there was some that were saying to His Majesty that Ethiopia should vote for it. But I know the reason why, right? Because even though, like it says in the Bible, hand join in hand, you know, but the guilty, the wicked will not go unpunished. So just because you see one, you know, being civil, right? And like even says in the Psalm that you prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. You know what I mean? You prepare a table, right, before me in the presence of mine enemies. So though you see His Majesty reason with different ones, you have to look at what the big policies were. You know, like a lot of people don't know that Ethiopia abstained, but yet Ethiopia and the state of Israel still serve the king, as it says that I'll make them who call themselves Jews and are not, you know what I mean? You know, to worship before your feet, to know that I have loved you. You know what I mean? But then at the end of the relationship, You know, that's what led to what we still are seeing the fruit of today. But here it's saying that the border of Judah was right next to whatever place Gaza was. The border of Judah was right at that border. And they were stirred up and said, this is King Solomon. You know, this is King Solomon. Now notice too, Haile Selassie was anointed. That's the Messiah aspect, and crowned the 72 nation witnesses also as King of Israel. So in 1930, when Kedemaweh Haile Selassie, the Rastafari, was crowned as King of Israel, there was no state of Israel. I just want to point that out. See how significant these things are? He is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, yet he is anointed. He's anointed King of Israel, but there was no state of Israel, like on the map, right? Until what, how many years later? 18 years later. 18 years later. See, the plot gets deeper. The plot gets thicker. You know?
We have to remember that Israel is also a people, you know. You can't forget that at all.
Of course. I'm so happy you said that, my brother. No, for real. Hear what the brother say. Israel's the people. So he's still king of the people. But I'm saying that there was no state. There was no state of Israel. So remember also the European Jews, they wanted to settle in parts of East Africa. Some say Wakanda or Uganda and certain other areas. I always want to point this out. So when people might say, oh, you're trying to be this or you're trying to say this, these are facts. You know, this is testimony. This is a witness. People can accept it as true or seek to dismiss it, right? But we're saying that because they have dismissed it, they've caused themselves so much trouble in this world. You know, the king is in Jerusalem building his house, right? Now he has finished building the house of God, and others said, this is Solomon, the king, the son of David. And they was perplexed as to who it was, and they disputed with one another, and they sent off spies mounted with horses who were to seek out King Solomon to find out if he were actually in Jerusalem or if he were with them in Gaza.
Yeah, come on, right all the way to Jerusalem to look for Solomon to make sure.
But now notice what I'm saying here. When I talk about crying for the Afro-Palestinians and the Afro-Israelites, we're looking at both sides of this. That means we got to represent not either or, but a third side of it. And now we're laying down some of the historical reference right here. So whether King Solomon, so notice, King Solomon was in Jerusalem, but his son was in Gaza.
Well, I kind of like how Bob Marley put it, you know. Bob Marley said he in there on the white man side, he in there on the black man side, he there on God's side.
Boom. That's what I'm seeking to say to ones and ones. That's what I'm seeking to say in this. And we really have to look at this like as it is. And this doesn't mean that we cannot or should not call a so-called spade a spade. You know?
Since we mentioned Ethiopia, I would say we're on Amlak side.
I'm like Kachin side, you know?
Yes, right.
You know, but as Israel, you know, we say we're on the Elohei Yisrael, you know what I mean? The God of Israel. Go to page 86, chapter 58.
86.
You know, because look, this is the family of fear, but look how Solomon rose up to slay them. Why? Because of the Ark of the Covenant. See the Ark? Yeah, page 86.
86, yes.
Yeah, but it's chapter 58. It's at the bottom, right? And so it said the king rose up in wrath and set out to pursue the men of Ethiopia. And when the king and his nobles and his mighty men of war rose up, had set out, the elders of Israel and the widows and the virgins gathered together in the house of Elohim, in the house of Amlak. And they wept for Zion, for Zion, for the tabernacle of the law of Exhiabia had been taken away from them. Right? So the ark. Now after Zadok had remained senseless for a season, his heart returned to him. And when the king commanded that the soldiers should go forth on the right hand and on the left, on the chance that some of the fugitives might turn aside through fear of the theft. Now, often people will say that it was Menelik, it was his son, Dawit II, Dagmawi Dawit, that took the ark. From the narrative and based on the text, it was actually Azariah who was
He
the
was
son of
the son
Zadok.
of the high priest Zadok.
Ah, Zadok.
But didn't Menelik have a dream that same night before or something like that about the Ark of the Covenant going to Ethiopia with him? But he didn't say nothing. He kept it to himself. And when Zodak's son came to him with the idea, he kind of smiled because he don't have that dream already. He don't have that vision in his head already. He just didn't want to say nothing.
Well, we know from...
And when they come with the plot, he kind of smiled because he was done with it already.
Yeah, because it was revealed to him in a dream. It was revealed to him in a dream by night. You know what I mean? So yes, I just want to make that point, because often they will say, oh, it was like the son of Solomon, or it was Minla that took it. But actually,
no, it's the son of the high priest Zodak, because they were told that they would have to all the firstborn sons of the like of all the like all the bigger them, the high priest and all of them, all the
sons had to go.
Have to go to Ethiopia with his son Menelik.
Yeah, and they
panicked because they born under the Ark of the Covenant. They never lived without the Ark of the Covenant. It was always in their life from the time they were put on the earth.
Facts.
So they panic. So they come with this plot now that if they got to go to Ethiopia and spend the rest of their life in Ethiopia, the Ark of the Covenant got to come with them.
You got to be there.
That is just what they were vibes in, but not realizing that this was done ordained
by the Almighty.
By the Almighty.
Because angel
Solomon had the dream that the great light that been shining over Jerusalem for so long came back and shined brighter than ever before, and then left and went to a distant place in the south called Ethiopia, which shall be the new Zion, the new Jerusalem.
The vision
so when we
was
talk Jerusalem, we need to understand these things here, the new Jerusalem.
The vision was already revealed. Yep, the vision was already revealed. And this is what makes the story and the narrative, where the story comes alive. You know what I mean? It comes alive because we see where it still is relevant to what's going on today. You know what I mean? So the king himself rose up and followed the track of the road of the men of Ethiopia, and he sent out mounted horsemen so that they might ride out before him and find out where they were and might return and bring news of them. It's coming up right here. And the horsemen journeyed on and came into the country of Misr, or Egypt, Misr, like Mitzrayim, where the men of Ethiopia had encamped with their king, and where they had made peace. Look at that. You're talking about Zion, right? They made peace with Zion. In other words, in the sense of the language, it's like they made peace with her, with Zion, and they rejoiced. And the soldiers of King Solomon questioned the people and the men, the men of the country of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, of Gibbet, and said to them, some days ago, certain men of Ethiopia passed here. Notice, the focus here is on the men of Ethiopia, even though there was 1,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, of Israelites. So there were 12,000 Israelites with them. Pass here, and they traveled swiftly in wagons like the angels. Check. And they were swifter than the eagles of the heavens. Right? And the king's soldiers, notice it was the ones in Egypt that was telling them this, Horus, the eagle, like swifter. And the king's soldiers said to them, how many days ago is it since they left? And the men of Egypt said to them, this day is the 9th day since they left us. Chan. And some of the king's and some of the king's horsemen then returned and said to Negus-Solomon, 9 days have passed since they left Mitzrayim. Some of our companions have gone to seek them at the Sea of Eritrea, at the Red Sea, the Sea of Eritrea. But we came back that we might report this to thee. Bethink thyself, O king, I beseech thee. On the 2nd day they went forth from thee, and they arrived on the 3rd day at the river Takazi of the land of Mitzr, Egypt. And we, being sent forth by thee from Jerusalem, arrived on the day of the Sabbath. And we came back to thee today, which is the 4th day of the week. So that's like around Wednesday, right? The middle of the week. Consider in thy wisdom the distance which those men traverse. He's trying to say that they're making speed. You know what I mean? We really can't catch up with them, because if they left by this time and they already are at this point. You know what I mean?
Let me say something real quick here. Now, we watch these movies like Aladdin and these movies here, growing up seeing these things with flying carpets, right? And we all say, oh, that's some foolishness, the carpet can't fly. Well, what he just done read right there, right? Is the Ark of the Covenant doing a magic carpet act. Carrying the whole caravan above ground. Nobody walking. This is what's going on. It's impossible for them to walk or run this fast to get anywhere. This is a magic carpet event that is being spoken about right here. That the Ark of the Covenant, the power of the Most High, had this whole caravan. Thousands and thousands of people with animal and all kind of things.
Moving
above ground, not touching the ground while they moving. It's a magic carpet type of movement, my lord.
Yeah.
This is what was going on.
Yeah, the people,
so that's why the people them to realize, just vision that type of powers. You know, people might say these things is impossible, but if you say this is impossible, you don't believe in the Most High. If anybody tell me impossibility when it comes to the Most High, do not believe in him.
Yeah, because they make planes that go real fast, right?
Okay.
Man make it, right? You know, not a God.
Magic carpet event that went down.
So you think the one who made man can't do greater? And the king was wroth and said, "Seize the 5 of them until we find the truth of their words." Now notice, when the king heard these men, he upset with them, King Solomon. And he's like, seize them, like grab them, like hold them until we find out for sure. You know, until we find out for sure what's going on. So right here we have the next mention of Gaza. The queen of Sheba, only son Menelik, and the king and his soldiers marched quickly, and they came to Gaza. And the king asked the people, saying, "When did my son leave you?" And they answered and said to him, "He left us 3 days ago." And having loaded their wagons, none of them traveled on the ground, but in wagons that were suspended in the air, and they were swifter than the eagles in the sky. And all their baggage traveled with them in wagons above the winds. As for us, we thought that thou hast in thy wisdom, get that? In his technology, you know, in thy wisdom, made them to travel in wagons above the winds. They're saying that they thought that this was one of your things.
Yeah, things that Solomon doing.
Yeah. And the king said to them, "Was Zion, the tabernacle of the law of XAVIOUR of Elohim, with them?" And they said to him, "We did not see anything."
I see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
But look at all they had seen. And then they say, listen, when you ask us about the ark, you know what I mean? Because remember, the ark was always, according to Torah, the ark was always to be covered.
Covered, yeah.
You know what I mean? She was always to be covered, never like naked like that. So it's like, they must have already known, like, listen, we're not, you know, we want to keep our eyes. We don't want to, you know.
Yeah, we leave that subject alone.
So here is the key Gaza. I just went through just some of this. These are the areas that Gaza appears in Queen of Sheba and only son Menelik. You know, just for ones and ones, the Queen of Sheba, the KEBRA Nagast, for ones and ones to check it out. You know, and this was not to even be long on this subject matter, but just getting back to that paragraph that the brother cited. Oh, let me look at my phone right here, because you sent me the link right there.
Yeah, because what you just said, that thing was put in place from the meeting, by the time the Queen of Sheba meets Solomon, because after he had that dream where that light went to the distant place in Ethiopia. Remember, before she left, she asked for something from the Ark of the Covenant, and he promised she the veil.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Remember, he promised she the veil of the Ark of the Covenant. So when Menelik came, he reminded Solomon of his oath to his mother that he will get the veil of the Ark of the Covenant. So that gave them more access to get in to steal the Ark of the Covenant. So the father put that plan in motion from long. Before Menelik even born, that plan was in motion.
Yep. Wow.
Like when you Monday morning quarterback it, you could trace the steps back and see how Jah put that working plan.
Yeah, I'm looking at this thing right here. Were you able to? Okay, yeah. Give thanks. No, I'm downloading that. I'm trying to download that document, man. Give thanks, yo. Give
Yeah, that
thanks for
one
this.
pretty interesting. Like you gonna like that.
Oh wow. Yeah.
When I first came on there, he was going through it. Like I had it up, and while he was speaking, I was glancing through it.
Yo, this is real good. This is like, it's like an excerpt from a chapter or so. Where sometimes like how we just vibes on this subject matter, they be like writing up a whole chapter on some things, and it looks real interesting right here. So the Gaza situation, and I would say Imperial Ethiopia, because only Imperial Ethiopia that could really, but even Ethiopia needs to recognize that they have a responsibility in this situation. You know what I'm saying? Like when you don't know your own story, you get caught up in somebody else's story. You know what I'm saying? When you get to know your own story,
I'm not gonna see this now, and sometimes it's good to see things out in the world, even to make it happen, But I put in this song out there. Ethiopia gonna have a big change in the right direction coming soon, right? But it's not going to be under this leader. It's the leader to come. What is going on right now is showing the next leader what he needs to do and what he need not to do.
Or maybe even
the one we got right now, when he came in and he was looking good, like, all right, this gonna be the one. But they get to him.
Or maybe she.
The B system got to him,
But can't say it might be she too.
Yeah, well, whoever it is, we don't discriminate against like our sisters, them, We give our sisters them the same reverence, like my brethren Van Benjamin like to say, the mind don't have no gender, So man and woman, when we say man, a lot of times when we reasoning as Rastafari and higher levels, and sometimes people hear we say man this and man that, we have to remember that, woman is man too,
Woman.
So sometimes we speak in man is a general between, man, woman, just, human itself, man, man, woman, it's just that she, just that she's special. That's why she got a woo in front of her man. So if any man vexed with that reasoning, that's on you, because to prove that she was special, that's where you came from. So argue with that.
Well, point duly noted, man. I got something to share with you on that. The leader that's there today. They even have they do some Photoshop with him and His Majesty, and they wrote on it like father, like son. How many Ethiopians see him as a kind of like their own kind of a majesty or something. You know what I mean? But they're not really seeing where it's leading to. You know what I mean? Where it's already at. You know what I mean? So when you live in something, it's hard to see it. Like we can look back on other history, even our own lives, and when we, they say hindsight is 20/20. As they move forward, they'll see this like the prophet I see. The prophecy.
Yes, sir.
They'll be able to see this. But yeah, man, the queen of the South, the Queen of Sheba. So we're talking about some Queen of Sheba. When I say politics, so to speak. You know what I mean? And her son, you know what I mean? Yeah, Ethiopia. Ethiopia shall be given. You know what I mean? Yes, I. So yeah, man, I'm going to seal this up right here because it wasn't like to be long on this one right here. It was just kind of to bring some, of course, we're going to look at the ancient maps. Looking at the ancient maps. It's important to see, are we looking at things properly? You know what I mean? Like both then and now. Like where is, I still say that part of ancient Israel was, where they have like the Muhammad things over there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, part of that was, part of the land. And it seems as though like what he did with the Israelites, that even when the Israelites were still in Egypt or moving out of Egypt in the wilderness, that there was great tumult among nations. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying to people, expect to see a lot of, this change that has to happen. You know what I mean? And sometimes these ways that we see things happen might be the ways that it was, determined that, okay, now it will happen. Because this time doesn't seem like other times. You know what I'm saying? This time is, what I mean? It's like learn from before. You know, I'm showing the people on the screen here the kingdom of Sheba of Saba, how it was on both sides of what they call the Sea of Eritrea, yeah, to the Bahia, the Red Sea.
We have to remember there's some writings that says that the Queen of Sheba in certain times in antiquity, she reigned all the way to Asia. So not just India, but all the way to Asia. So
well,
we
the
have to
reign
look at these as well.
and reign in ancient times was a little different than the geopolitical stuff today. The reign is like what they call like influence. You know what I mean? Your influence. Your influence was your rulership. Not like you had troops, you had to station troops. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Just remind the people, it wasn't like that. It was ancient rulership where you have that influence. You know what I mean? And your influence, it kind of shapes those other people too. They're almost like, made in your image.
Yes. The part of your kingdom is like the U.S. Use the U.S. for example. The U.S. have the mainland, but they also have Alaska that is on the edge of the continent, and you have to go through a whole other country to get to them. That's a state for them. Hawaii is in the ocean, Pacific Ocean, that's a state for them. There are places like Guam and the American Samoas and the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, places that's under their influence. Those are not states, you call them commonwealths or whatever, but they are under the influence of the United States. So their currencies and their laws and policies and stuff would more follow the governance of the United States, and the British Virgin Islands, they would more follow the governance of the, of the UK and these kind of things.
That influence, yeah, there you go, the Commonwealth.
That's the influence there. So when the Queen of the South was reigning, all the way to Asia would be similar. Like you go to India in that time, you on the Horn of Africa at that time, you're down by the Sudanese area, what they call Sudan now. You go to these areas and then go to Asia, you would see the same type of levity. Because everybody under the same influence, the same power structure influence. So you'll see the same type of levity and cultures and things going on that you will find a familiarity within the people and the cultures and things that's going on. It's like if you go in the Caribbean right now, and you go to any Caribbean island, if you don't see an African influence, like your eyes close. The African influence is all over the Caribbean.
True.
Look at the carnivals. The carnivals is perfect example. Listen to music.
True. Yeah, that influence, and this is influence that we have even while we are still like the tail. You know what I mean? While we still are the tail, we still have that influence. It's almost like look at hip hop or music, and the culture that comes from, we can say even black people, Israelites here of the West. You know what I'm saying? Even while not consciously identifying, right, with the covenant, the heritage, still there's that influence that we have as a people, and this is as a people who are under other people. You see what I'm saying? Can you imagine what it will be like if you still have that same influence of culture, of music, of social and more, you know what I mean, as a ruling influence, being sovereign, in other words. What I want the people to look into is two Zions. Look into, do a little research. I don't know if how it will come up for ones and ones, but the two Zions. There was a book by Edward Uhlendorf. He was a great scholar and everything. He was the one that translated, His Majesty had him translate the autobiography, book 1. But he wrote a thing about the two Zions. and others have touched on this subject matter, that both in the scripture there's two senses and ideas of Zion, and also that there are two Zions even today. Because a lot of things have been hijacked. Like even the name Yisrael, Israel. Because we say that today because of politics and because of the world and what's going on presently, people will have a certain connotation, of it. That's not really right. The same thing we say Jew, or, if we say Zion, people immediately going to think about the Eurocentric Zionism. But beyond that, beyond the modern make-believe, you see what I'm saying? The dangerous is it's make-believe, but it's real. Because somebody makes you believe something, you believe it's real. So that reality still shapes one's thoughts and decisions. So I just want to point out the two Zions, the living legacy of the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon. That Axum and Jerusalem, like we say, like with the New Jerusalem, the New Jerusalem, idea right there. So just want to point it out. If y'all look that up, the two Zions.
And while we're talking about Axum there too, it is said. I just wanna, I'm not sure about this, so I'm asking you that the Queen of Sheba Makeda was born in Axum.
Well, according to the earliest Queen of Sheba document, in other words, the Queen of Sheba, people talk about the Queen of Sheba, the KEBRA Nagast. There's the KEBRA Nagast that, like the translation that we just went through, the Wallace Budge and other versions of it, that is the final version, roughly about 700 plus years old, back to like 1270-ish, roughly is dated. At least the manuscripts are dated, and some dated to that time. But there's a core manuscript that was before that, and it's mostly in like Tigrinya and the Gutters. And in that one there, it brings out more detail on the Queen of Sheba. So there's some things that are similar in this one. It's like the basic structure of that, but there's other things that have been left out. So in that, it speaks about the Queen of Sheba being born in the north of Ethiopia, where the Aksum area, and even embracing like where Eritrea is today, but the both sides of the Red Sea, where Yemen is. These were places it's like going the other side of the Mississippi River. If I'm going the other side of the Mississippi River, am I going into another country? I might be going into other states. You see what I'm saying? But it's all part of the same society. It's all part of the same structure. People live on this side. Exactly. And that's kind of hard for people today because the way they do these artificial states, the way they do these artificial states is they use water sometime, as boundaries for other people. But then look at how they took America. And America first was just 13 colonies. But you see how they advanced it from one ocean to the next ocean. You know what I'm saying? So the same thing existed, what the brothers mentioned about India, the influence in India, and all those regions. And we tend to think out of Africa. And we tend to think about Africa in the ancient times like people today think about Africa, in the sense of Africa ended at the Horn of Africa. What we call Africa, the people, the cultures. No, it didn't. In those cases, like the Queen of the South and like what the Queen of Sheba represented. You know what I mean? And there's more on her backstory. I hope that we continue to reason on her and can bring some of the testimony, both from Ethiopian and even some Yemenis, because there's been a lot of scholarship digging up a lot of things. I'm showing the people some things right here. There was this movie, American Gods. You ever seen that one?
I don't think so.
There's this one, American Gods. It's interesting because they have a character that's like the Queen of Sheba. The Queen of Sheba is like, how can I say, she's a real black woman character. Because there's different sides of her. You know how they say like that song, I'm Every Woman?
Yeah.
There's the dark side of the Queen of Sheba. And you know what? Based on what I've read, she did have that potential dark side. But notice
if you're going to rule and protect your rulership, you have no choice but to be able to have to tap into that one.
But
you can have no choice.
But she went from the negative to the positive, so to say. She went from there, and it was a choice. It's almost like she was on top of her game as being a queen, you know, because back in those days they had kind of like, you know how like today there's sexist and there's feminist. Not saying that these were movements in the past, but there were certain structures that was based on, like the structure that she was about was based on like the woman rule in that sense. But she got to the top of her game where she began to recognize that this is good, but there's something better. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's kind of an interesting thing. It's almost like even a lot of our people getting caught up into some things don't think that they can have a teshuvah, a metanoia, a repentance, a change. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Bad boy, what it says? Bad girl. She's an example of bad girl, change your ways, right?
Change your ways, just calling you.
And she answered that call. That's the amazing thing about when we look at the Queen of Sheba from the Ethiopian and from the non-Eurocentric perspective. When we look at
the most important word we use tonight?
What? Which one?
Influence.
Influence.
That's the word of the night. Influence.
You know.
And if I have to say anything to the people before we close out, is be careful what influences you. Pay attention to what influences you. Control what influences you. Because the things that influence you will shape you. You tend to draw to the things that influence you and do the things that influence you. So be careful of what you let influence you and who you let influence you. And be aware of when you've been influenced the wrong way. That is a key. Because sometimes you've been influenced in the wrong way, and if you're not paying attention, by the time you realize it, it's too late. You know, and I know ones could relate to that, you know. We all at a point in time where we realize certain things when they were too late.
You know, you brought something out, like I was saying, okay, we're going to seal this up. Yeah, we're going to seal this up, but got to give you this right here, brothers and sisters, and my brother right here, because we'll be amiss, so to speak. And on the Gaza references, we just showed you that there's a whole 19 of them, right? And there's more there, right? And hopefully we'll pick up on that. Ones that can search it out for themselves, search out those 19 Gaza verses in the scripture, some prophecy, some history, some things that may help us more better understand and overstand what's going on and stand properly. Here I want to take you to Matthew 12:42 and also Luke 11:31, but we're going to start with Matthew 12:42. And this goes along with what you're saying on a very interesting way. I got to get to Schofield, because Schofield has an interesting write-up that I think is true to the spirit of the text here. And it's Matthew chapter 12. The key verse is 42. But we're going to...
Matthew 12 and 42?
Yeah.
Well, I just grab my sword there.
Okay, yeah, I'm grabbing my sword right here, the hard copy, because what you said right there about influence. And
12 and 42.
Yeah, influence is a spiritual thing. I don't know if one's picked up on that. Influence is a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
You know,
I can believe that.
You know, and there's a spiritual war going on, and influences are being used to influence us, and also who we influence and how we also influence other people too. You know, but here in Matthew chapter 12, right, this is all on Gaza. And Gaza, Azza means strength given to the Queen of Sheba, right? I'm going to show you here where Robenu, I Rabbi, the Rabbi of Rabbis, our black Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, here, where he gives a prophecy. Here's chapter 12, verse 38. I'm going to begin just with verse 38 because it's important just to understand the context of this. It's the sign of the prophet Jonah, right? And Jesus foretells his death and resurrection. You know, his death and resurrection. You know, I was watching this movie and somebody that was anti-Bible was talking about like the people of the Bible and the ancient mystics, the greatest trick that they can do is their whole death and resurrection trick. You know what I mean? But he hated that. You know what I mean? It's like they know how to hide and pretend and play dead. You know what I mean? And then come back. You know, like somebody think they got you. You know, and then you show up. You know, here it says, then certain of the scribes and of the Pharisees answered, saying, Master, we would see a sign from thee. Right? Because he's giving them a whole teaching in the chapter, early part of the chapter. Check it out, brothers and sisters, if you get it when you get the chance. Verse 39, right here. But he answered and said to them, an evil and an adulterous generation seeketh after a sign. An evil and adulterous, hurtful, harmful, and adulterous generation, no covenant-keeping generation, seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given to it, but the sign of the prophet Jonas, or Jonah. Now, Jonah in Hebrew means Columbia. It means a dove. I just want to point it out. Jonah basically is like a pigeon dove. You know, like a dove? It's like a pigeon dove, right? So he said there would be no sign given to a harmful, ill, evil, and adulterous, no covenant-keeping generation that seeks after a sign. It's almost like nowadays people would be saying everything is a sign. You know what I mean? Everything is a sign. You know what I'm saying? When we're driving on the road, the highway, we only need a few signs, right?
Yeah.
Before we get where we're going. But some people seeing all these signs, they still don't know where they're going.
Yeah.
You know?
Still lost.
Pray to I. I just had to get this right here. Yeah. So they're seeking all these signs, right? Life is one big road with lots of signs. When you're riding through the ruts, don't complicate your mind, free from hate, deceit, and jealousy. Don't bury your thought. You know, put your dream to reality. I say don't bury your vision. You know, put the prophecy to reality. So right here, he says, for as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly. I told you that when you look at America, the United States, what they call the United States, it looks like a whale. You ever did that? If you look at the outline of the USA, the United States of America, it looks like a whale. It looks like a big fish. 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so the Son of Man, right, be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. In the heart of the earth, right? Descend to the heart of the earth. And then verse 41, it says, the men of Nineveh shall rise in judgment with this generation and shall condemn it. So Nineveh was the people that Jonah didn't want to go to at first, right? They wasn't Israelites, but he was told to go there. And so here Yeshua is saying that those people are going to rise against such an evil and adulterous generation, condemn it, because they repented. They had a change of mind. Right? They repented, change of mind, change of heart, attitude at the preaching of Jonah. And behold, a greater than Jonah is here. Now, most ones, when they talk about the sign, people talk about this sign. You've heard a lot of people talk about the sign, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're looking at one of the Bibles that are red letter, but the people who see the video will see the red letter there. When we go to the next verse, it's red letter, but people often leave this part out, right? People leave this part out. Verse 42. The queen of the south shall rise up in the judgment with this generation and shall condemn it. For she came from the uttermost parts of the earth. Because when you look at like a map, if she was located in Yemen, right, across from the Horn of Africa where Ethiopia is, and to go to where they say Jerusalem is, right? That's like going from one end of the land to the next end, the uttermost part. If she was in Ethiopia, the Horn of Africa, on the other side of the sea, right? That's sort of a journey, right? To hear the wisdom of Solomon. To do what? To hear the wisdom of Solomon. To hear the what? The wisdom. You remember we were talking about wisdom, right? Who is wisdom? Right? The wisdom of Solomon. Right? The Barbello, the wisdom of Solomon. And behold, a greater than Solomon is here. Right? So I want to point out this right here, just to what we're saying, the Queen of the South, right, shall rise. I know you say that, what was it, bad boy, change your ways?
Yeah.
You know, bad girl, change your ways. The Queen of the South, you know, shall rise, right, in the judgment. So it's like when his majesty said that, you know, the duty and the role that the woman, especially the righteous woman, you know, play, you know what I mean, is immeasurable. You know what I mean? You know, so she'll condemn this generation. You know, so there's a prophecy here. What Yeshua is saying here obviously is some word of prophecy. If Jonah is a sign, right? Didn't they say that the sign of Jonah? Where is the sign of the Queen of the South? Was the Ethiopian eunuch that particular sign? You know, now further there is a whole seven thing. You know how the eyes speak about the sevens?
Yes.
It says, when the unclean spirit, here they call this the worthlessness of self-reformation. Some people theme this as the worthlessness of self-reformation, right? Verse 43, when the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places seeking rest and findeth none. Right? When the unclean spirit, right, is gone out of a man, right? He walketh through dry places seeking rest and findeth none. Verse 44, then he saith, I will return into my house whence I came out. And when he is come, he findeth his swept empty, he findeth empty, swept and garnished. Then in verse 45 it says, then goeth he and taketh himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter in and dwell there, and the last state of the man is worse than the first. So shall it be even to this wicked generation. You know, that's the end of the words that I quoted of Yeshua. So we just wanted to give ones that, you know, in full right there. You know, give ones that in full right there. But so now remember they had the sevens there. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know.
No, that's well, and afraid it come worse than the first, you know.
So it's almost like when we look at what's going on, like just in the world and the reality, it's like almost like that. You know, it's coming to, because this is all speaking about some end time. This is speaking about some prophecy. Some say Jonah had to do with the crucifixion. You know, some say and with the 3 days, 3 nights, you know, in the tomb, and then he resurrected on the 3rd day. All right. But I think it's more also is that, but it's also more. You know what I mean? You know, there's more right there. You know what I'm saying? You know, there's much more right there. But hopefully we'll get into that, you know, a little bit more. But I just wanted to share that one right there. And yeah, the Gaza. I think this is a word that will be, you know, hopefully giving more revelation as we go forward, you know. For ones and ones, I would recommend, you know, get a copy of Queen of Sheba and Biblical Scholarship by the late author Bernard Lehman. You know, this is him right here. But this is a very excellent work. To what you said about whether the Queen of Sheba was born in Tigre, he compares
Axum.
well, yeah, in Axum. Axum is in that, that sector, that section, yeah, the northern part. Yeah. Born in Axum, yeah, definitely. It's in the older document. And one of the few places I seen that document published was in Queen of Sheba, the research and the scholarship by Bernard Lehman. I haven't sent out a copy of that one, but that's the one that also proposes other geographical locations for the ancient Israel. And with those geographical locations, what we read about in KEBRA NAGAST makes more sense. Some people say that the geography doesn't make sense. And what he shows in his book is that the the places that are called certain places today are not really what those places were in biblical times. You know what I mean?
No, that's the whole thing. They change up certain things and change up names of places and put places where they want it. And so we have to be careful of these things when we arguing about certain places and these things. That's why I like our word of the day, influence. Be careful of what influences you, We have to remember these things.
And also what sort of influences that you or me or that we put forward to other people
put forward on other people as well, yes.
Do unto others, influence others the way you would want to be influenced. Yes, sir. So we seal up right there. Gaza belongs to the Queen of the South. Now, if we take that as true, how could that change for the better? You know what I mean? The political situation. You know what I mean? Yeah.
What was first shall be last, and what was last shall be first.
From politics to true politics.
Yes, so let us be careful of what we put out in our mouth and what we take in with our ears.
Amen.
Make that balance,
Amen.
Right choiceness all the time. So
righteousness.
This is just vibes in. The Honorable Rasa Adonis Tafari and I Rasimo, aka the Colonel. I bless you in the name of His Majesty, Exhibit Karamawi, Haile Selassie, and I salute you when I say Jah Rastafari.
Yes, I give thanks, Colonel. Give thanks. Shalom, Habarim. Shalom, Rastafari. Shalom.